Writing SQL queries can be challenging, especially for non technical users. An AI powered SQL query generator converts natural language queries into SQL statements, making it easier to interact with databases. Using DeepSeek AI, we can automate query generation, helping users extract insights from database without deep SQL knowledge. Now, why use an AI SQL query generator? It simplifies database queries, it converts plain text into SQL automatically. It saves time, it reduces manual SQL query writing, it enhances productivity, helps business users extract insights without SQL expertise. It supports multiple databases, works with MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, etc. Optimizes query performance, suggests best practices for SQL efficiency. Now let's look at some of the common use cases. First, generating reports from databases. Second, querying customer and sales data. Analyzing financial transactions. Retrieving healthcare records from databases. And finally, automating SQL queries for data science projects. And many more, but these are the ones that are more common than others. Now, how does the AI SQL query generator work? The AI powered tool will receive a natural language query, analyze the intent and required SQL operation. It will then go and generate an optimized SQL statement, and then it will return the SQL query for execution. Now, an example for converting a natural language query to SQL looks like something like this. Your user input is get the top 5 highest paid employees from the employee table. That's what user have to say. And the AI generated SQL query will be select name, salary from employee, order by salary, descending limit 5. So it will make sure that it is in descending order and it will just limit it to 5. And that's what the query is, get the top 5 highest paid employees. So with this knowledge, let's jump into setting up the AI SQL query generator. Let's build a Python script to generate SQL queries using DeepSeek AI. So we'll follow the 3 steps. First, install the dependencies where we'll ensure we have request and Gradio installed. Next, we're going to create the Python script. And finally, we'll run the script. So let's go ahead for step number 1. I've created a folder called as project 17. And go here and say pip install our request and Gradio, and it's installed or it's already installed. Next step is go here, new file. I'll save this as SQL underscore query underscore generator .py. There you go. Once I save it, here the first step is to import request. Next, I'm going to import Gradio as gr. Next, DeepSeek API URL is Olama URL http localhost 11434/API/generate. Next, let's write the function to generate SQL query. Here, I'm going to ask the user to give us the natural query. Database schema is employee name salary department. I'm just setting a default one. You can not set it. It's just for our exercise today. Again, now next step is prompt convert the following natural language query into a SQL query. And that is the query is this query that is passed by the user. Next, I'm going to say assume the following database schema. So this is the schema that I am asking the DeepSeek AI to assume. And then I'll say return only the SQL query without any explanation. I don't want anything explanation here. Next is payload. So as model is DeepSeek R1, prompt is this prompt, and stream is false. Next, I'm going to go ahead and get the response. I'll say request.post, give the Olama URL, JSON is equal to payload that I'll pass here. Next, I'll check if status code is 200, which means everything worked fine. Then I'll say return response.json, convert that into JSON, get the response key from there. If it doesn't have it, then I'll say no SQL query was generated. Else, I'll say return error response.text. Next, I'm going to go ahead and test the SQL query generator. If name equal to main, I'll say test query equal to list all employees in the sales department. And then I'll say print AI generated SQL query is generate SQL query test query is what I'm passing here, which is the natural query. So now that I have this, let's go to step 3 where we'll run the script. I'm going to go here and say Python SQL Query Generator and run it. So now it's going to take my query and then natural query and then query ask DeepSeek AI to generate that list all the employees in sales department SQL. So let's give it a few seconds and we'll see the output here. And there you go. It thought for a little while, you see everything, and only gave me back the SQL. Select name, salary, department from employee where department equal to sales. And that is what exactly I want to list all employees in the sales department. So it says name, salary, and department, employee where department equal to sales. So perfect. So that worked perfectly for us. It gave us the sales. I didn't want the salary and department, but it's up to you if you want to use it. If not, you can ignore that. Next step is creating a web app for SQL query generation. Now that we have the application, let's build a Gradio web interface where users can enter plain text queries and receive SQL statements. So I'm going to go ahead and do two steps. First, modify the SQL query generator so I can add the Gradio interface and then run the web app. So I'm going to go back here, clear this out, go here, and let's comment this out. Next, here, I'm going to for the Gradio interface, I will create the Gradio interface equal to gr interface, and here function is my generate SQL query. Next, I'm going to say inputs that it needs is natural query. It says gr.textbox lines equal to 2, enter a natural language query. And then I'll give an option for entering the database schema, which is optional because I already have employee name, salary, and department. And then close it. Output is gr.textbox generated SQL query. This is where my SQL query will be displayed. And I'll say title AI powered SQL query generator. And then I'll say description is enter a natural language query and AI will generate an SQL query. Perfect. I'll close this and then I'll go ahead and launch the web app by saying name equal to main. Then I'll say interface.launch. Save this. I'm going to go ahead and run this again. This time it will give me an HTTP link to open it in the browser where it's running. I have my natural query here and my database schema I can enter here. Now go ahead and get the same thing here. And this time I'll say in the IT department and submit. It's going to go ahead, do the same thing called the Olama API and then use the DeepSeek R1 to generate the text here, generate the SQL query. And there you go. This time it was a little faster. It got me select name from employees where department equal to IT. So I have my entire uh, thought process for DeepSeek AI and also my SQL query displayed right here. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. And if you want to play around with it, change the natural query and it will give you the SQL query. So next step. Next, what we're going to look at is enhancing the SQL query generator. First, we'll look at SQL optimization and index suggestions. Now, to optimize SQL queries, we will change the prompt a little bit to look something like, let me show you. Let's go up here and here I'll say prompt optimize the following SQL query for better performance and I'll pass the SQL query. So instead of natural query, you'll pass the SQL query and say suggest indexing strategies if necessary. That's what I'm specifying here. So this is how you can make sure that we have some better optimized SQL query functionality available in here. So you can create a separate function and call that function instead of generate SQL query, and this is the prompt that you'll be using. Now AI can suggest faster SQL queries for you. Next is multi-database compatibility. Now modify the function to support different SQL dialects. What do I mean by that? So I can go here and update the prompt to look something like this. I'll say convert this natural language query into database type, whatever the database type is. So for example, if my database type is, I've not given database type here, but if I say database type equal to MySQL, something like this, MySQL compatible SQL query. So this will kind of give you, depending on what the SQL database the user is using, because sometimes MySQL has some queries which look a little different from PostgreSQL or SQLite. So that this will help you with that. So now AI can generate queries for MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, etc. So there you go. Next step is deploying as an API. So to integrate the SQL generator into applications, we'll have to deploy it using Fast API. So first, check if you have Fast API. So I'm going to go ahead and clear it out here and say pip install fast API and UVCon. So if you don't have it, it will download it. If you have it, it will say requirement already satisfied. Perfect. So next, I'm going to go here and create an app.py file to create our API. And here first, I'll start with importing fast API from fast API. Next, I'll import request app equal to fast API. Next, I'll say Olama URL is this is the URL for Olama where it is our local host API generate. Next, I'm going to say I'm going to create an endpoint generate SQL which accepts post request, and I'll say generate SQL here. It takes a data element, and it says prompt equal to convert this query into SQL, whatever the natural query is. Assume database schema is data.get schema. If not, then unknown. And then I'll say payload is model DeepSeek R1, prompt is prompt, stream false. Response equal to request dot post olama and JSON equal to payload. And then finally return this response back in convert it to JSON. And if it has a key response, return that, or else return no SQL query available. So that's all our API will do. And now to run this, I can just use UVCon, which we have installed, and run it right here. So now it's running this. I can go here, copy this, go to my Postman, create a post request, and in here our request is generate SQL. So generate SQL, and then inside my body I'll say that I have my raw JSON data, and then it needs natural query, and if its schema is not there, it will just use unknown. So I'm just going to leave that as it is, natural query, and I'll say I'll use something similar that we have used before. I'll say list all employees, give that, and send it. So this will go there. And again, like this time I have not given too prominent prompt. You can use the same prompt from before, but my prompt is just convert this query into SQL, and I've given this data here. So it might not just give me the SQL, but give me all the details and explanation. So I'll give a few seconds and wait for it. And there you go, we have this data here, and at the end it should have, if you see here where the condition, I think it's explaining everything. Select clause is talking about the query, but here inside this particular text it has the SQL query that you can use. It talks about join, left join, everything in detail about the query that you'll have to create for this particular list all employees in sales department. Again, depends on how you set up the prompt. You can just request for SQL query, what we have done here in the previous function, where I said return only the SQL query without explanation. So you can do that and you'll not see the entire explanation here. So perfect, that takes care of our API. So I hope you were able to follow along and get to this point. If not, if you have any questions or had any issues implementing this, let me know in the messages and I'll get back to you. Now, just to summarize this video, we built an AI-powered SQL query generator. We created a web app for interactive SQL conversion. We enhanced the SQL queries with optimization features, and we deployed the SQL generator as an API for database integrations. Our next video, we will cover Code Debugger AI, which is an AI-assisted bug fixing and code analysis tool.